him he had to find his phone.
Gotcha. All right. Let me see if he's in the hall.
He said he go
No,
find it.
where have you been?
With his
You
girlfriend.
asked me where if you know the restroom before you just show up late. That's a tardy, my man.
With his girlfriend. Wait, the bell already rang?
Yes, a minute and a half ago.
Hey, hit the bell.
Huh?
Thank God I ain't hear no
How did I
bell.
manage to continuously tell myself I'm gonna do it and then I manage
And then
to
never do it. Same. You know what my students in sixth period started doing? That's actually helped them a lot. Is they started setting alarms on their phone to go off at 7 or 8 o'clock whenever they know they'll be home. And that alarm tells them, hey, do your homework now.
The sad thing is that Alan and I were on call. He's like, did you do your homework? And I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And then I never did it.
Here's something I will say, and this might be a good piece of advice for you to hold on to moving forward. Swallow the big frog first. What that means is take care of your biggest responsibilities before you start just enjoying life. Swallow the big frog first.
I'm bad with that type of stuff.
But I promise you, you learn that one concept, it will help you the rest of your life.
Cause when I get home, I'll be like, I done had practice. I done been to school. I just need to play the game a little bit, go to sleep for a little bit, watch TV for a little bit, something like that. And then I always end up doing it for too long.
Well, so here's what I would say, because I totally get that as well. Because sometimes we do. We've been overwhelmed. We've been doing a lot of stuff. So here, take a break, but set an alarm on your phone, 30 minutes, and then I'm doing something.
My bad.
No more than an hour. They told me. But you get here on time.
Yes, sir. You lucky I said something.
Yes, sir. Say it louder. Yeah. So again, I want y'all to know, these are important principles that you need to take to heart. Swallow the big frog first. Take care of your big responsibilities first. You get the big stuff out of the way, then when you, hey, this one's plugged in, but that one's not. It doesn't work. When you take care of those big responsibilities, then you can just enjoy your life afterwards instead of having to worry about those responsibilities later. 2, I totally get that, hey, sometimes we're worn out from a day. Trust me, I do the same thing when I get home. I teach 6 periods a day and I'm tired at the end. But I take a quick break, maybe grab a snack, start feeling a little bit better, and then I get to work. You good? Go ahead. All right. What questions do you have off of this homework for us to get started today? Remember, you have an understanding check, so if you have questions that deal with inequalities or interval or set notation, you need to ask them.
I think I already did it in class.
Number 5, most of us got to in class.
Yeah.
Yes, CJ.
What's with number 6?
Yeah, 400. Yeah, this.
We're going to get to number 6 in a second. I gave you all the beginning to A. We went over A in class, didn't we, before the bell rang?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yeah. You wrote it down.
We can talk about it in a second, but what did you say, Dawn?
I said, God dang, that man's tight.
Okay, be careful of your language. Wrong. Come on, man. That bell rang 5 minutes ago. You should be seated and ready to go. You sat on your phone for a minute after you walked into class, after being late to class.
You would text
Text
me.
her on.
Why?
Told you to
She's out of
text me.
town.
Why didn't you text her before you got here, or wait till after class?
So you a home.
I feel like your mom should understand, hey, I'm in class. I love you, Mom, but I got to go to class. I got to learn something. All right. So we good on 5 then? We're ready to move on?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So here's number 6. What questions do you have?
damn.
Now, hold on. Just to clarify. This is one approach you could have done, saying 1168.75 is less than or equal to 2.75L, and 2.75L is less than or equal to 1438.25, right? That 2.75L had to be between them. This, though, is my preferred method, and then I solve that inequality. Notice literally that 2.75L is in between. This is known as a compound inequality. You can do it either way. This is just the way I prefer it. Because once you solve it, divide by your 2.75, so you have to do it to both sides of the inequality, or all sides of the inequality, you're left with this statement, and it very clearly shows you the number of lunches purchased is between 425 and 523.
I like that one, yeah.
Like, that way to me makes a lot more sense anytime that you have two things, or both things happening at the same time.
My dumb self multiplied.
You say your dome self multiplied? Why did you say your dome self?
Cause I knew it's one of the steps that when we had to multiply.
But notice what's happening between the 2.75 and the L. They're being what?
Multiply.
So the inverse of that would be,
Divide.
right. And so remember, what you're trying to always create right now are those zeros and the ones. When I divide by 2.75, what is 2.75 divided by 2.75? 1.
I got a question.
I don't have any answers, too bad.
Wow.
I'm just kidding, what's your question?
Alright, so how did you know what sign to put?
This less than or equal to you're talking about right there?
Yes, sir.
So in order, that's a good question. So think about it this way, what is the lowest number there?
1,116.
And what's the highest number?
1,438.
And so, 0.25, right? And so notice that means, isn't 1,168.75 less than this number? Okay. So you see how that's less than. And then, so I know my variable has to be in between these. So there's my variable. And if this variable is in between these things, that variable has to be less than this as well.
Then
Now it could be equal to, because that is how much money is spent, and that is how much money is spent.
yes, sir.
Does that clarify your question?
Yes, sir.
But that also corresponds to this idea that, hey, if 1168.75 is the lowest that is spent, that's less than or equal to, well, this x would have been that 2.75 L. So that has to be less than 2.75 L. And then you can solve that. 425 is less than or equal to L. And then you have an and in here. The other thing that has to be true is that 2.75 L has to be less than or equal to 1,438.25 because it has to be between, so it has to be less than that maximum. And then when you solve it, L is less than or equal to 523. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Any questions about that or about part B or C?
Yeah, I see what I got wrong. I multiplied and I got some big numbers.
Yeah, you did if you multiplied. Any more questions though before we move on? Yes, sir.
How do you use set notation?
Okay, that's a good question. So remember, when we do set notation, it's always going to start off with what?
The
The curly bracket, right? So I'm going to say the curly bracket. That's the set of. As soon as you write that curly bracket, it's the set of. And then it depends on what variable you used. I used variable L. If you use X or S or something like that, you would write what your variable is. I used variable L, so it's the variable L. It's the set of L. But I don't know what L is, so I have to define it. So CJ, I'd say the set of L, when. That little vertical bar is WHEN, when something is true. So it's the set of L when something is true. And so first off, I'm going to define what number set this exists within. So if I'm talking about the number of lunches being purchased, am I going to talk about parts of a lunch or is it only going to be whole lunch numbers? Okay, so I'm going to say that L is an element of the whole number system, which it could also be integers. Integers just include the positives and the negatives, but we're going to restrict it to be just positive, so you can do it either way. Okay? Now, the number of lunches is not every whole number. It's only a certain number of whole numbers. It's specifically only these numbers. So I say it's a whole number, but remember, whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to positive infinity. That is not positive infinity, is it? And it's also not 0, 1, 2, or 3. So after I define this in the whole numbers, I have to say 425 is less than or equal to L is less than or equal to 523. And this part usually is just whatever the inequality is. Right? If you look here, see how B is greater than 60? Notice B is greater than 60. That's the ending. the set of b when b is an element of the whole numbers and b is greater than 60. But if you can get decimals, what number system are you dealing with? Say again?
Real number.
Yes.
Real, yeah.
But the decimals are going to fall within the real number system.
That's
Okay?
what I was about to ask you about. Yeah,
Because the real number system covers what's called rational and irrationals. We'll talk about that later this year. But anytime that you deal with decimals or parts of a number, just go ahead and say it's real number system for now. Any questions before we take our understanding check at this point?
With the interval notation,
Mm-hmm.
so how you know which one to put first, like which numbers?
It's always a minimum,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and
you
then it's
said
a maximum.
You said that, yeah.
Good question, Matt.
What if you got two on that equal the same?
Say again.
What if you got two on that equal the same?
If they equal the same? So like,
200 and 200.
so then instead of using interval notation, because there's no interval there, it's just one number, I would just use set notation and I would just put the number 200. It's the set of what number? It's just the set of 200. I wouldn't even worry about doing all of this. Now if you're doing with inequalities, you're probably not going to get just one single number, right? In this case, there's a whole bunch of numbers, a whole bunch of solutions, right? That's usually the case for inequalities. We go with that idea? One thing I do want to show you quickly is, this is a concept it won't be on your understanding check, but it might help you with some things. Okay, so notice when I solve number 6 here, I got these two numbers, 425 and 523, right? Based on this, I say 425 is less than or equal to L. First off, should I put a closed point or an open point at 425?
Close.
Closed, why?
Cause that's the farthest you go.
Yeah. That's minimum.
So maximum.
It's definitely the lower number
Yeah.
because I can,
Equal it to.
there we go, it can be equal to. The closed point means you can equal it. Ronald, Zay, are you paying attention? I'm going over things that will be on your understanding check and you're not paying attention. That closed point tells me that we can equal it. An open point means we can not equal it, right? So notice, which direction should I shade now in respect to this 425?
To the right.
To the right, why?
Whoa. Good. Cause it can't go lower than
How do you know?
Cause it got equal. I don't know.
It's greater than or equal to.
So notice it says 425 is less than or equal to L, but remember that also means L is greater than or equal to 425, right? So greater than or equal to does mean to go to the right, but also remember, we're trying to find the things that make the inequality true, meaning we're trying to find the solutions. Think about this number 523. Is 425 less than or equal to 523?
No. Well, yes.
Yeah. So does this number make it true? So I should be shading to the right. Make sense? Now when I look down here, L is less than or equal to 523. Open or close point?
Close.
Should I shade to the left or to the right?
No. Wait.
L-
right,
L?
right.
Okay. So an example of a number to the right would be like 600. Is 600 less than or equal to 523?
No.
No. So should I be shading to the right?
No.
To the left, right? Remember, it's L is less than this, so this is the highest number. I want to go to the left. Again, check your numbers. Is 425 less than or equal to 523?
Yes.
Again, to the left. Now, I want you to notice that I want this inequality to be true, and I want this one to be true. Looking at this number line, where would both of them be true? Look at the number line. Where would both of them be true?
In the middle.
In the middle. Isn't that between 425 and 523? Isn't that what this says? Between 425 and 523? That's why I like this notation, because it very clearly tells you that you're in between those two things. But if you understand, hey, I need to make this true and this true, you can find it as well. We good with those ideas? Any questions before we take an understanding check at this point? Beautiful. Clear your desk. So we're going to do the understanding check. We're going to start on 4.6 just a little bit. But please do not forget, Zay, can you jump a group back just so we're a little spread out? And same thing for you, Trey. Can you jump a group back just so we're a little more spread out? This is the rubric. Please put that away. This is the rubric that I use to grade it every single time. What is the most important part of your work?
Explain.
You've got to justify it. Part of that is, honestly, when you have to take the time to justify it, it should help you slow down and pay attention to the things that you need to remember. Justify your answers.